surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
How can I convince you when your ears refuse to hear? You turn your heart away from me each time that I draw near. Your eyes refuse to meet with mine, they glance away in fear.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all unreached foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
Well, it doesn't show how can I contain this anguish and this pain, knowing that your eyes are blinded by the lies.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
Blinded by the lies.
Catch the Green American weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Every time I think about the damage that's been done, the anger wells inside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to tear the moon out of the sky and drop the sun.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. I'm your host. I am Clay Douglas. And we're going to go in a few different directions today. I do want you to hear from about the bad side of things. I've been in this battle for a long time. And right before my accident, we were starting to roll. I was doing the Free American Expos. I had them in Atlanta, I had them in Fort Worth, I had them in Dallas or Mesquite. And some of the people that I put on there, some of the people that spoke there, people like Eustace Mullins, assholes like Alex Jones, wonderful people like Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. Some really wonderful, wonderful people. And one of the things that Kathy told me while we were smoking a joint together, that she could do anything she wanted. She delivered heroin to George Bush. She was there and forced to allow George Bush to molest her daughter until Mark Phillips came in and saved them. She told her story, and I sold her book, Mystery Babylon. I sold her book to support her and Mark. And not only that, the information that she put out on George Bush, a reptilian shapeshifter like Leonard Horowitz, a pedophile like the Queen, like the Pope, like the whole Catholic Church. It was pretty intense. pretty interesting. But too often we get caught up in the negativity because that's what they want. They want you to be afraid. They want you to be afraid. They want you because fear destabilizes your ability to react properly to things that are happening. Now let's start out. We're going to go in some different directions today. It's going to be important for you to listen to this entire show, because the first half I'm going to tell you what some of the problems are, tell you how evil the people that we're opposing are, the people that I tried to oppose, and as soon as I had Kathy O'Brien on, now, almost immediately after the show was over in Mesquite, I was arrested. I was put in jail, charged with stealing a generator from a state that I'd never even been in. That's a long story. I'm not going to go into it. It's not important right now. And what's important is I told you that God's alive and well on the internet, and that's what today's show feels like. I had put up Kathy O'Brien on my show, on my Facebook page, Fear America 69, a few weeks ago. She did a lecture, a talk. She and Mark did a talk at another place that I'm very familiar with, that I've spoken at, called the Granada Forum in California. And 10 years ago, this is after she came on my show, she went to the Granada Forum, and she has since disappeared. Hopefully they're safe. This was the year before they tried to kill me. Why did they try to kill me? They wanted to silence me. They did not like the power I was getting, the films that I was getting, the people that I was having on. Mark and Kathy were guests on my show often. They are afraid of me. They're afraid of the information I'm putting out. They're afraid of the finger I'm pointing at the Jewish connection. And if you listen to my show yesterday, you'll know that your greatest hero here, Alex Jones, the Nazis are coming, does that because he admits he is Jewish. Now, I had another woman call me up. She listened to the show. She'd been a guest on my show. She's a pet healer. She's a pet communicator, animal communicator. And she called me and couldn't hardly talk to me because, Clay, I'm Jewish. I don't care who your grandmother slept with. I don't care what religion you were raised in. My research takes us far beyond that. I don't believe the little old lady next to us that lives in the house next door. She may have sons that are bankers. She may have sons that are doctors. She may have sons that are lawyers. They're the bad ones. They're the ones that are working for a foreign country. They're working for a bar association. They're working for Israel. They're trying to get aid to Israel. You can listen to the video of Alex Jones trying to reach somebody over the coals and tell them, hey, the truth. He was telling Alex the truth. And Alex tried to diminish it. That's why he does what he does. That's why he has the support. He is backed by Israeli agents, Statford, ADL, Southern Poverty Law, because he won't give you the truth. He won't tell you the truth. And again, the truth is, these are elitists at a higher level. They hide behind the Jews. They hide behind the Christians. They hide behind the John Hagees, the Pat Robertsons, that want your support of Israel, a foreign country that is, the headquarters for the Antichrist, the Lucifer, or Satan. I believe Lucifer was demonized. I don't believe in that. And But let's hear Kathy for a minute, and then I'm going to take you on another trip. This issue of the Free American, the June issue, takes you into outer space, takes you into the inside, takes you into the deals we've made with the aliens, and I'm not talking about illegal aliens. I'm talking about the civilization that's been on this planet for 100,000 years that had a worldwide population before an accident took them out. A celestial accident that I actually wrote about 45 years ago. And those articles, those stories, those novels that I wrote in prison, they never got published. I managed to keep them, had to fight to keep them from prison to prison when they did the whole shuttle thing with me, shuffling me to Huntsville to Cofield to here to there, and they thought I'd lose them. I even had a father-in-law that was a Secretary of Agriculture that helped try to lose some of my writing, even though I ended up marrying his daughter. And after 25 years of marriage, he forced her to leave me. But that's all covered in my book, Mystery Babylon, which you can buy and read right now, along with the 300-year history of the Rothschild, along with the story of the blood of Jesus on the Ark of the Covenant, on another person they tried to demonize. But let's hear from Mark Phillips. Mark?
My role in all of this is relatively simple, but nevertheless complex. I'm going to give you all a background tonight of about a few minutes of MK Ultra information, and I request that you all write some questions down for us. We cannot take verbals. We will take written questions. You don't have to sign them or put your name down there, and we'll attempt to answer as many as possible. Please make the questions relevant to the subject matter, because I can't, nor can Kathy, discuss what we may surmise are other victims, other than the ones that are the most obvious ones, like Timothy McVeigh. And again, it is not our experience. We have no proof. We only have Mr. McVeigh's admissions and some other information that would support it. But that's an example of our limits. We prefer to answer any and all questions individually, standing up in front of you, because there is no such thing as a bad question. We spent about 5.5 years on the lecture circuit with law enforcement and mental health. Now, that was done to protect us. It was also done to ferret out as much information as we could regarding other survivors, as well as ferreting out information through law enforcement, or I should say cooperative law enforcement, who were like you all, they're free thinkers, and they knew something was going on, but they didn't understand it.
Now, Timothy McVeigh, he was in the U.S. Army at the time of Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City was done to stop me. ADL got in there, Southern Poverty Law got in there, trying to demonize me for starting a militia. They just didn't tell you I did it in the governor's office. The governor in New Mexico was Governor Gary Johnson, a good man, and he backed me. He kept me safe after the FBI listed me, after they BATF, the same ones that were responsible for murdering the children of Waco, after the BATF blew up the Murrah building and killed more children. And of course the BATF was involved in Fast and Furious after my accident. Governor Gary Johnson ran for president against Obama, and you foolish people didn't even know he was running. You didn't talk to him, libertarian. You sidelined it. You went along with the $1 billion that was invested in promoting the Republicans and the Democrats. All of that money went to the media companies, who never told you about Charles Collins in 1996. They didn't tell you about Governor Gary Johnson in 2012, they control you, and they are so afraid of me. They control Alex Jones. They reward him well. He makes a lot of money. He's got good Jewish advertisers that support him, that won't talk to me, and they will demonize me every time to keep you from finding out that the protocols of the elders of Zion is very real, very, very real. It's a plan of action that has been put into motion and continues to be put in motion. And again, I'm telling you that there is hope in the future. Now, what did I do here? Evidently, I've lost Kathy O'Brien. We'll get that back here. Where did we go? And there's so much good news waiting here. So it's kind of hard to tell. All right, Mark.
I will attempt to give you as much background on myself so that you'll have some understanding of how I was able to do what we've accomplished, Kathy and I. But our main concern, of course, remains the same focus, and that is to get this information out to the populace of this country and all the other countries that are affected, and we don't know many that aren't, and also to affect Kathy O'Brien's institutionalized daughter, Kelly, who, by the way, went into an institution when she was 8 years old, right after I rescued them, and she remains in that institution or an institutionalized setting to this day. I don't know how many of you all can imagine being a child and being raised in a mental institution, but I can assure you it is not a pretty sight, even though Kelly has not been mistreated as she had been prior to going into the institution. External control of the mind is not something new. It's thousands of years old. It's recorded in caves. It's recorded the exact formula for trauma-based mind control in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Adolf Hitler was particularly interested in mind control, and he assigned his right-hand man, Heinrich Himmler, to do some research, particularly on the families of Northern European multi-generational, sexually abused, psychologically abused, physically abused children. You see, I'm sure each of us understands, those of us that read the Bible and understand its literal interpretation about the sins of the father, understand what multi-generational abuse means. In this case, multi-generational abuse, and that begins, by the way, at birth, involves horrendous sexual and psychological and physical abuse that is put on these children by their caregivers. Well, Adolf Hitler knew that these people who are abused become very, very receptive to external control of their mind. They also develop some incredible abilities, like 44 times visual acuity. Now, I know that it doesn't take a rocket scientist, pardon the pun, to figure out how we could use somebody with 44 times the average person's visual acuity. It's called special forces. Special forces individuals are screened very carefully. Now, back when I was working for the Defense Department in a project known as MK Ultra, which was the exact project that Adolf Hitler assigned Himmler to do on multi-generationally abused children, I saw nothing of what Kathy O'Brien is reporting. I saw no abuse. What I saw in the prison systems and in the mental institutions there were people who had a chance to recover their lives and their mind. I saw things that were very benevolent. And I really and truly believe the information that I was seeing would eventually reduce our prison and our mental institution populations dramatically, because I saw true rehabilitation occur without the use of trauma. Well, I was sworn to secrecy on the things that I witnessed, on the equipment that was developed, and I can assure you that in 1967, all the way up through 1973, when I was involved in this research as a Defense Department subcontractor, the equipment that I saw then was 25 to 30 years ahead of anything known on this planet in the private sector. I don't know if I was even seeing a portion of what was actually available. I don't know if what I was witnessing represented even a small percentage of what was actually occurring. But I was put into that job after months and months and months of psychological examinations because they knew I could keep a secret. I was given a Defense Department clearance. I knew about the Heinrich Himmler studies for Adolf Hitler, and I knew that Adolf Hitler wanted to develop some very serious people to put in places to control various regions in what he called, and George Bush called, and Nero called, the New World Order. You see, Adolf Hitler was not the first, nor was George Bush, to fantasize about this hideous idea of totalitarian government enslaving an entire globe through mind manipulation. Now, mind manipulation comes in a lot of forms. You folks in this room are not falling into one big, huge trap, and that is information control. And I, again, thank the Grenada Forum for bringing Kathy and I in to impart this message, because we need your support. This book is not distributed through bookstores for the most part. The few bookstores that do handle it directly with us. To guard the integrity of the book so that it would go totally uncensored, we published it ourselves the first time. We now have an opportunity before us because many of the people Kathy has mentioned in the book have been indicted for a variety of reasons, or are facing indictments, or have fled their respective countries, or stepped down from power. For one simple reason: corruption that they could not cover up. Now, the corruption that we're talking about here goes beyond, I hope, most of you all's limits of experience. It certainly went beyond mine. I had a household that was this is totally alien to. But what Adolf Hitler began in his adamant research on, he had the largest number of human subjects from which to work and do his horror on. And it was even accepted by most of the people in his country that these prisoners of war were indeed to be subjected to anything that he chose that would better his country. Well, MK Ultra took on the same scientist, because in 1947, when the National Security Act was formed, there was a project that was developed called Project Paperclip. There was a few airlines at that time that were cranked up. Capital International Airlines was one of those airlines. I was vice president of Capital Airlines for a period of time. Capital International Airlines. This is very similar to the hat that they wore. By the way, you realize that if we could get these guys to all wear a hat, force them into a uniform, Our problems are over.
He's wearing a cap that says CIA. Yeah, I personally like Border Patrol. You wear a Border Patrol cap down here in Texas, and you can get right into the emergency room.
I told Kathy, I said, I don't know how to introduce this information. I said, do we come out here and say that we're the first and second oldest professions? All right, I want to see who laughed. Well, Kathy O'Brien certainly is a remarkable person, but I can assure you the prognosis for recovery of someone who has been horribly abused before age 5, before the brain is fully formed, the recovery I should say the level of recovery is very good. These people can lead normal, productive lives, even though they've experienced, in most cases, a lifetime of horrific abuse. That was the thing that surprised me the most. Now, there are a lot of survivors out there. There are a lot of survivors in various levels of recovery. Kathy is, again, the only one that we know of that is vocal, that has written a book, that's been validated, and we haven't been locked up. Now, I want everybody in this room to understand that neither Kathy or I are suicidal. And we just came back from Arkansas, and I want to tell you, Kathy and I were invited over there to spend 4 days with the investigators because they had found one chapter of her book they were actually able to validate. I said, well, give it to me in print. And they said, we can't do that. And I said, well, okay. Can I use this recording? I was only joking. They patted me down before I went in. But no, these people are what I consider friends of yours and mine. Now, if there are any CIA operatives in this room, you don't have to hold up your hand. But I'll tell you where I'm staying, and I want you to come see me alone. Particularly if you're trying to disrupt what we're doing. Because this information that Adolf Hitler was developing, we developed through Project Paperclip. Project Paperclip was the importation of Nazi and fascist scientists into this country after World War II that saturated our universities, saturated our Fortune 500 corporations, saturated NASA. It built NASA. And it has infiltrated every aspect of society with its filth. Filth and child pornography. Filth in blood rituals and hideous religious beliefs that involve human sacrifice. Anything to traumatize the mind. Some of these, I'm approached by a number of avid researchers that say, well, this is Satan behind it. Well, I want to tell you, these are people behind it because I worked for the airline that brought these folks in. I had no idea what I was involved in, but I was recruited by Capital International Airways for the purposes that I could keep my mouth shut, and I worked on a need-to-know basis. Most operatives do not know who they're working for. There are over 86,000 of them in this country. Now you divide that by 50 and see what you come up with. This place is crawling with Big Brother. The KGB never had that many functioning operatives in high levels as we do in this country. 1984, George Orwell's book, really was a grim prophecy that has come true. Most people are saying, we got to stop this New World Order from taking over. It's already here. We're in it. Now let's understand who the players are and some of their tools. Mind control, whether it be trauma-based mind control to develop a totally robotic human being, is one type. Fortunately, it requires a great deal of horrible trauma that somebody's got to put on to these people. And it requires something more than just pushing a button on a console. There is equipment available now that we cannot protect ourselves from. And the amazing part about this equipment is it's available to everyone in this room. I don't quite understand the philosophy about making pain field generators and another device called an MDD-1, which uses a dual-coil electromagnetic pulse system, which affects our cerebral cortex. It stops logical thought. You couldn't balance your checkbook if one of these things were turned on, nor could...
Mark is kind of missing the true mind control tool out there. It's called Talmud vision, TV, television. The average child that you sit in front of a TV to keep them entertained, they watch murders, they watch rapes, they watch every type of degenerate behavior. They're programmed with it. They're taught to, and they've even, my God, Obama declared June to be gay, LBGT, lesbian, gay, transsexual, bisexual month. They're putting this multicolored gay symbol up in the schools. They're programming it for schools. This is Mark Phillips is talking here 10 years ago, and I'm going to skip over and bring up Kathy. You can watch the whole thing on my Facebook. You can see it, but I'm going to jump to Kathy now.
The belief that I could not be deprogrammed to remember those things that I was supposed to forget.
And I want you to, while you're listening to her,
for as intelligent,
while you're listening to her, keep in mind that I sat in a room and she told me personally that the one thing she was not allowed to do, she could do heroin, she could do cocaine, she was forced to allow Hillary Clinton to make love to her. She'll cover all that. She'll talk about that. But the one thing she wasn't allowed to do was to smoke a joint. She was not allowed to use marijuana because the marijuana breaks the ability to control. I've been smoking it for 45 years, and I discovered that I could not be hypnotized. I could not be programmed. I even paid a hypnotist to do that after the stage hypnotist ordered me off stage. And this paid hypnotist said, you have a very strong mind, Mr. Douglas. I can't hypnotize you. Are you going to give me my money back? No.
as these perpetrators are, they're limited in their thinking by their own immorality. They don't have wisdom. They don't think deep. And they never considered the strength of the human spirit. They never considered what would happen when a good man like Mark Phillips gained knowledge of their secrets and used them to restore a mind rather than control one. I know that I'm extremely fortunate to have survived my CIA, MK Ultra, White House, Pentagon level, trauma-based mind control victimization. Now that I'm in control of my own mind and ultimately my free will, I'm telling everything that I witnessed and saw and heard and photographically recorded behind the scenes of this New World Order effort. By telling their secrets, their power is eroding. I also speak out to give voice to the many mind control victims and survivors out there who can't think to speak out and tell what they know and what they've endured. I speak out for the sake of my daughter, Kelly, who's now 16 years old and is a political prisoner in the custody of the state of Tennessee, where she's being denied any rehabilitation due to the political affluence of her abusers. She's counting on Mark and I to get this word out. on her behalf. For Kelly's sake and for your sake, Mark and I have gone to great lengths to document the facts and the truths that are listed in our book, Transformation of America. Transformation of America is self-published, uncensored, so that you can have the facts that you have a right to know and a need to know.
And it was for sale in my magazine, The Free American, for over 10 years. I bought it directly from Kathy and Mark. I distributed it. I showed that they spoke at my expos. And the attempt on my life, same kind of attempt that was used on Mark Hastings, that was used on Bill Cooper. They wanted to silence me. I was getting too strong, too powerful. And this show, too, I'm going to be talking about some of the solutions here later on. They don't want you to know that for $27, you could change your whole neighborhood. Baby, I don't have the $27 because I'm dependent on your donations to get anything above my standard expenses. So I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to check this all out for myself. I'm going to give you the information on this show. I'll tell you how you can do it. You can check it out. You can then turn around and tell me if it's real, or if it's just fantasy. I do know that the answer's out there, and I know from personal experiences. I know that my father-in-law, a man that I trusted by the name of Sheriff Babcock, who helped build the Aswan Dam, he put a Pogue carburetor on his truck, was getting 70 miles to the gallon, and the men in black showed up and stopped him. I've talked to people that build magnetic generators that I will describe for you later on in this show, and they said they tore it up. They tore it down and destroyed it because they were afraid. Because the men in black showed up and said, Mr. Babcock, we need you to destroy that device that you got sitting over there on your workbench, the one you got in your truck, and the one you got on the bench there that you're building for Colonel Conrad. What happens if I don't? We'll kill you.
These truths have been covered up and kept from all of us for a long time under a blanket of so-called national security. This is the same blanket of national security that has prevented us from obtaining justice, despite the extensive evidences and documentation we have. We have over 27,000 documents and evidences. Government insider testimony, medical records, more than enough evidence for any legal procedure in this country, including congressional. But this blanket of national security has stopped us from obtaining justice.
All right, I'm going to stop that right there for the moment. And I'm going to be playing you some clips from other things. You can watch this up on Free American 69 on Facebook. Watch it in its entirety. I don't need to do this. I need to get some information out. I need to make you understand. I've known Kathy for 10 years, or more than that, 20 years. And if they hadn't tried to kill me, if they hadn't destroyed my source of income, and I had one source of income, just one, that I sold for $500,000, and I still retain 50% of it. Today, I can't pay for the repairs on my motorcycle. I can't spend $27 to check something out to tell you whether it's a scam or not. I can give you the information, and I will do that in this deal. And I'll tell you that you don't have to give them $49, they'll take $27. Oh, let me see what that is. Hey, Kathy O'Brien is talking about the trauma-based, and here in Cuero, Texas, just a few miles from here, a 2010 black Chevrolet Camaro is involved in a child abduction. Oh my God. Kathy, finish up here.
It's time for truth to prevail. It's time that these truths were brought to light for the sake of humanity as we know it. I'd like to begin by defining mind control by my experience. I realized that my experience was extreme, that the extensive, total robotic, absolute mind control I endured is more limited than the kind of mind control that is proliferating in society. Mind control has kind of a sliding scale where you've got the total robotic mind control on one side, and you've got mind control that's proliferating, such as in occultism in this country, or Global Education 2000, where children are losing their freedom of thought and their ability to critically analyze. There's so many different aspects of society that are affected by mind control in varying degrees. It's imperative that this information get out. And as I explained, my victimization, it certainly can be applied to all different facets of mind control and mind manipulation. And as Mark and I have heard so many, many times from people who have read the book and heard us speak out, that this is a thread that's tying things together. All of a sudden, this whole new world order is making sense. The erosion of constitutional values, the erosion of morality in this country, all of a sudden, it begins to make sense when we learn about mind control. I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, to a multi-generational incest-based family. This means my father was sexually abused as a child, my mother was sexually abused as a child, and they were sexually abusing me. My father sexually abused me as far back as I can remember, and I've often heard him state that he began substituting his penis for my mother's nipple while I was still an infant. I tell you this so that you can understand that my sexuality was confused at infancy. It was put into an area of my brain that's much like survival, like eating and drinking would be. I tell you these facts so that you can be better armed and understand what's happening in society. And name names. Mark and I name names in our book, Transformation of America, not so that I can say, well, I was in the White House with so-and-so. I mean, I missed the whole glamour part. But this is so you know who the problem is and where these problems lie. The sexual abuse that I was enduring was so horrific that I developed dissociative identity disorder. This used to be termed multiple personality disorder, and I'm so glad they've changed it to dissociative identity disorder because it really more aptly describes the compartmentalization that occurs when a person endures trauma that is literally too horrible to comprehend. Even though I couldn't understand that what my father was doing was morally wrong, the pain and the suffocation of his abuse was so extensive that I developed dissociative identity disorder. It certainly was incomprehensible. There was no place for it in my mind to deal with such horror. Therefore, I developed a compartment in my brain, a little area behind amnesic barriers that was actually the neuron pathway shutting down in my brain in order to compartmentalize the memory of the abuse so that the rest of my mind could function normally as though nothing had happened. So if I'd see my father at the dinner table, I didn't remember sexual abuse. But as soon as he unzipped his pants, the part of me, that part in my brain that knew how to deal with that horrific abuse, the neuron pathways actually physically opened up so that that part of my mind could deal with my father again and again and again as needed. I certainly had a lot of experiences within that compartment that dealt with my father's abuse. But I didn't have a full range of perceptions. I had a very limited perception, a very limited view.
All right, I'm going to stop that there and play this for you. We're going to be going into the second hour here, which is going to take a totally different direction. Let me do this.
Be honest. He knows more than you can imagine.
At last. Welcome, Neo. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
It's an honor to meet you.
No. The honor is mine. Please, come, sit. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
A prison for your mind. And folks, this is what I discovered years ago, that you have been born into slavery. Be a good slave. Don't rebel against your masters. Now, part of this that's been pulled over your mind is, well, all of it probably. A lot of it is about power. This issue of the Free American, the June issue of the Free American, talks about the use, the recreation, the connection with UFOs. Now, I'm going to bring up, we got 10 minutes here. I want to bring up Ralph Ring, a scientist you probably never heard of because they don't want you to know him. I want you to listen to him. When he discovers a levitation, he discovers the UFOs, and he actually gets to see them there because of his connection, because of the work with the people he's working with. They honor him with a display, and I'm going to try to get to that. Ralph?
Through, and then I did many, many more, and they all went through without deflection at all. And I said, "Oh, I'm happy. This is going to give me a raise, maybe."
He's been brought into a government operation. He has discovered how to use the energy that we're going to be talking about in this show. That he's met Nikola Tesla. He's known about this. He knows about the flying saucers. He knows about the truth. And, of course, his research was silenced. He was threatened, and you need to hear about that.
So, then the next experiment, on the bench next to me, they were working on levitation. Other technicians, other engineers were working.
What department were they
working
with?
In advanced kinetics. The laboratory was huge, and we had different, different workbenches, and they were working on lasers to the moon and levitation.
So there was different interests, of course, involved in some of the projects as well.
The government was funding this. This is all government-funded research.
Department of Army.
I don't know.
Just to get back to your story, though, so you had developed this pulsing,
right.
And in the next, you're saying next door?
Next bench over, they were working on levitation, and they had these just coils, iron with the copper wiring, and they had steel balls, and they would put them on top and fire it up, and they would levitate the ball for, I think, 4 to 8 minutes, and it would burn the coil out. And they were called agliotrons, I believe is the correct term for them. And they'd have to go to supply and get another one, and get another one. They were burning up 2 or 3 or 4 of these. And they were, in those days, that was the 50s, they were like $400 a copy. And they were just, we don't care, we got plenty of them. And they were burning these things up. So the other experiment I did at home was I took a 15-inch woofer speaker that I got out of a garage sale or, I don't know, sound system somewhere, and I put it just flat on the carpet on my living room floor and attached my audio amplifier to it, and I started experimenting with like acoustical levitation, thinking, well, they're using this force to push up, and they're using a lot of power. I'll try sound waves. I'll try sympathetic vibrations or whatever. So I fooled around with different objects, and I'd have tentative results. It'd start pulsing and stuff. And then I put a ping pong ball in the center, and I kept fooling, and I think it was 28,000 cycles. I got the ping pong ball to come up.
Well, interesting you mention that, because I recall seeing a news clip back in 1989 showing the scientist discovered how to do exactly what you just described.
This was back in, the 60s or
the 50s.
50s, oh God.
Pulsing was quite simple, and, it can be done today, it can be duplicated today, I suppose. I never tried it, I didn't think, to go back to it, but it was a very simple operation, because you let nature do all the work, and all I did was understand what was happening. So, and the same with the ping pong ball. Once I got it to levitate, I was excited as heck, and my wife said, come to bed, so I went to bed, and the next morning when I woke up, the ping pong ball was still sitting there, just
levitating.
And this was like, I think it was 28,000 cycles.
No heat?
No heat.
And sound, the sound.
Acoustical sound is all it was.
Now, was it audible to the human ear as far as the sound?
It was above. It's just, I couldn't hear a thing.
So you're talking perhaps high frequency level, or ultra low or ultra high?
Yeah, I experimented with different, down in the lower ranges, and nothing seemed to happen. It had bounced and stuff. But when I got up
In the UHF.
Yeah. Then it happened. So I thank my wife for the pushing into that direction, because this is my field. This is what I always wanted to do, and I think we're onto something here, and I can put my 2 cents to the pot and help humanity do something.
Way back then, you knew all this.
Oh yeah.
And so, but you took it to these guys, right? And how did they react?
I took it to Dr. Weinhardt himself. I took Polaroids and I wrote up papers on it, just like I did with at the lab. And I took it into Dr. Weinhardt, and he says, "Close the door, come in, sit down." He said, he looked it all over and stuff, and he said, "Yeah, I know it's that simple, Ralph. I know that. But this is a government-funded research facility. We count on the funds to keep us going. We're not necessarily interested right now in finding the answers. We're interested in looking for them. And we get paid handsomely for looking for the answers." And I said, "Well, here, look, this works. I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe it's not right, but I thought if I turned it over to the boys here, we can come together, and this is a lot simpler than $400 a copy for Igleotrons and wasting our time with the cathode, that you got set up." And he said, "Well, I can appreciate what you've come up with, and I didn't think you'd get there this fast with this because of your interest in natural law, but I'm going to have to shred this." He had a shredder right there. "I'm going to have to shred this and tell you to go back to work on what you were doing." Well, right there, my whole world collapsed. I mean, I thought, where am I? I mean, I didn't, my whole attitude, my whole demeanor towards the world changed.
Who are these people anyway? And who are they really working for?
Right. That's exactly the way I felt. So
So eventually you actually left the job, right?
Yeah.
You just got...
Make a long story short, I went back, I worked another 2 weeks, and I couldn't stand it. That's it, I'm done. So, but during this period, I started meeting people, just coincidentally, who were, most people I talked to outside of the lab didn't want to talk science. They wanted to talk other things. So I had very limited contacts with other people that were interested in science. Except I started meeting, I met this one person that said, "Well, what you're talking about is exactly what you're talking about in these meetings that I go to." And the name of the meetings are called Understanding. And they were developed by a person called Daniel Fry, who was in the UFO and stuff. And they want to understand more. Why don't you come to one of our meetings and talk? Well, I went to the meetings and I kind of duplicated what I just said about where I was working, And they said, you've got to meet somebody. You've got to meet Mr. Carr.
What year was this?
Well, I think it was late '59 or early '60s. And they said, you guys are talking the same thing. The same exact thing. And I said, well, okay. He said, well, coincidentally, we're in touch with, he's just had some bad luck in Norman, Oklahoma. That's where he was trying to demonstrate the crafts, flying discs. And they started negatively defining his work, and the newspapers got a hold of it, and he's trying to get funds to do something that's impossible, and science has just never heard of such a thing, and so forth. So we're going to bring him out here, and we're going to get a lab out here, and let him, with his entourage, and let's go. Let's try another place, another time, and see if we can get somewhere. So they did, and I met with Carr, and his entourage. He had
All right, hold on
Dennis
right
report.
there. Hold that thought. We'll be back in just a second. Here you're listening to the Free American Truth Radio, Crusade Radio. Hopefully we got it up on Crusade.
Discover what's really going on in the world that mainstream media won't tell you. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs. TruthRadio.com. The truth is out there.
Let me say it for you so you don't have to. Who wants to know anything more about the JFK assassination? Well, I'll tell you who. You. Once you see the DVD I can send you from Truth Radio on that subject, you will be so grateful. You'll start listening to this thing and watching it. You'll say, this I have seen over and over again. Where are we going with this? Why do we have to be bored by all this repetition? And then, about a third of the way through this DVD, your eyes will be so far wide open. You will be astonished at the documentation and the new information, the startling revelations. Ask for the JFK DVD when you write Truth Radio, P.O. Box 344, Nipomo, California, 93444. Do it today.
Sorry for the silence. I'm still here, and you're listening to Ralph Ring. He's skirting around the issue, but it gets better.
Norman Colton, Wayne Aho, I don't know, there was about 6 of them.
He had a little consortium going on here.
And where was this base now? Where was your group
Okay,
based?
this was in Costa Mesa, California, where these understanding meetings were, and that's where I met Carr.
Okay.
But they found out that they were after Carr. He was having all kinds of misses. They were trying to quiet his efforts, you know. They were trying to...
When you say he was having misses, actually people were trying to kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were threatening, and then you know, he'd have to be very careful where he went because he'd find people kind of, you know, very curiously observing him, and you know, things like this.
They already knew what you were up to, and they probably were following you as well as following him.
That's a good point. I didn't bring this up, and I think it's important. You've heard by now, it's all over the place, about 3 men in black.
Right.
Okay, I'd never heard, this was back before I'd even heard of such a thing. These 3 guys showed up on my door after this experiment, and after Weinhardt had destroyed these things. Honest to God, they were in black suits, and they said, we're from the DeWalt School of Electronics, and we've heard about you, and can we come in, and we want to know about your experiments and what you're doing and everything. And I was a little hesitant, but I invited him in, and I started talking, and my wife said, no, these guys they don't feel right.
Yeah.
She's very intuitive.
Yeah.
And she had a bad feeling about
She
them.
sure did. And I said, well, God, you can't kick them out. But they became a little more insistent on, well, give us how you did this, and I want the details and stuff. And they're not giving me anything back. They're just kind of taking it. She caught this, and she says, you know, I'm going to have to ask you guys to leave right now. You can come back later or whatever you want to do, but you got to leave right now. And she kicked them out of the house.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so you started in Costa Mesa, and you didn't move out of there or
Yeah,
something?
the understanding group had a cabin. Some people, there was lots of people in the understanding group. There was, you know, I don't know, a couple of dozen people that we'd meet. Had a cabin up at Lake Arrowhead, which is down by Riverside, up in the mountains in California. And they said, well, we got to get Carr and you guys in a safe place. And there's a nice big cabin and room enough for everybody. Go on up there, and then we'll keep working on what we're going to do. So I got up there talking with Carr and his proteges and his people that he had with him, and man, I just lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, I was on cloud 9 because I just, man, he was answering questions that I had on things, and I was answering questions he had on things, and it was just, man,
connected on all kinds of levels.
God, it was just the most wonderful time of my life. We were feeding the raccoons to keep our minds off. We were so anxious to get going on the project, and we got a phone call, and they said, we've got you a place. It's just down the hill from where you're at on the other side in Apple Valley or Hesperia, California, near Victorville. It's coincidentally because all these people moved on feelings and spirit, if you will.
And this is about the same era. I wanted to point out that George Van Tassel was having a lot of UFO meetings out at the Integratron near Joshua Tree.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned Van Tassel. I forgot. I had ordered from Europe Tesla's big book, and it did get to me. And I was going through all the patents and everything in the big book. And when this thing happened, with my wife kicking these guys out and everything, I got a little apprehensive, and I decided I knew of Van Tassel, and I knew a little bit about his background, and this was before I met Carr, and so I took a trip. I got in my car, because I was going to try and meet people that
will be more receptive.
More receptive. And I took this Bible down to Giant Rock, Joshua Tree, California, and met with Van Tassel, and we had a nice talk, and I said, I was supposed to give you this, I can't, I'm out of this phase of this. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm going to do, but this is it. And I gave it to him, and I remember it was getting late that afternoon, or evening, and I went out and laid on a hillside, and I looked up in the sky, and I saw hundreds, if not thousands, of whatever they were, UFOs, spaceships,
different various
lights.
Shapes.
Really?
Yeah, they're like green lights or whatever. I don't know. There were hundreds and hundreds. They were coming over, and they'd stop and come down and go up and around. And, oh my God, this is really, this is really. And I said, what is this for? And what I got was because you did what you did. And wow, I was really...
So it's like a thank you demonstration of a sort.
Right.
Wow.
And I just...
That's amazing.
I chilled all over, like,
if you build it, we will come.
Oh, man. So then I got back, and then they had set up the meeting with Carr, and then we got down into the laboratory down in Hesperia, in Apple Valley. And... we started setting up shop. We had a little machine shop set up, and we had, all kinds of stuff to do things with. But we'd had a couple of models that they brought with them that were semi-operational. So the first experiment that I saw that just knocked my socks off was we set it up on one of the workbenches and attached not electricity, but sound waves, if you will, or maybe it was, I think that we had I'm not sure. Anyway, and this was a small model about 2 feet in diameter, 2 or 3 feet in diameter. And they said, well, take a look at this. So they fired it up. Hardly any noise, just a hum, vibratory hum, and it was made out of aluminum, and I touched the surface of it, and it felt good, but I could feel the vibrations, and so they kept increasing the energy, and then there was this feeling that it felt really like somebody had opened a door and a cool breeze was coming through. It felt really good. And at that time, I went to touch it again, and it was like Jell-O. It was getting soft. It was getting really, really soft, like I could put my fingers through it. Better than Jell-O, because it didn't stick or anything. I put my hand in and pulled it out.
Oh my goodness!
Like that.
And what did it feel like when your hand was inside of the gelatinous material? Did you feel any?
It was the same tingling that we were all feeling in this room. That we had accelerated our efforts. It's like what it was doing, we were doing.
I see. So you were sort of speeding up to kind of like in sympathy to those vibrations.
Exactly.
That resonance that you talk about.
And Carr, after the experiment, Carr, the way he briefed us on things was just, we'd sit down and have a cup of coffee, and but he'd come out with this wonderful stuff that, just about the laws of nature and how they are, that is our whole essence. And if we ignore it, we're in trouble. You've got to understand these laws and how they work for anything. If you want a comfortable life, a good life, a happy life, and especially if you want to get anywhere in technology, you can't use brute force. And I told him about advanced kinetics and everything, and he kind of laughed and he said, no. He said that he told me a lot. He worked with Tesla, and he'd known, him for a while and worked with him. And I guess by now you already know about the story of Tesla going to J.P. Morgan and
when he showed the wireless tower how to transmit power wirelessly, and he says it's a real good idea, but how are we going to stick a meter on it? The essence of we are in control is really astounding, and he definitely sent the message.
No more, he said, if we go your way, Tesla, we'll have no more copper mills, no more lumber, these trees for telephone poles and wire. And he said, well, that's the idea. You can stick a pole in the ground 30 feet and 30 feet, and I'll show you. We can get electricity anywhere. It's all around us. We're living in it. And Morgan said, no way, Tesla. There's no money in that.
J.P. Morgan, from what I understand, was also one of the first, one of the pioneers in the military-industrial complex. He was the man. And soon afterward, he pretty much picked up the bat phone to the Washington and said, hey, we got this loose cannon on our hands, and the implications of the conversations pretty much took care of burying Tesla from thenceforth. And I guess from what I understand from reading some of the journals, they gathered up all his equipment and they shipped it off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And then I guess they put him up in a hotel in Waldorf, Astoria, and gave him government stipend, and the agents were always on the crawling everywhere, interrupting his conversations, and pretty much filtering out any connection with the outside world to him.
Did Carr mention what happened to Tesla? Did he talk to you guys about that?
Tesla became discouraged because of the lack of interest in what, he'd take them a new idea or bring out a new idea and show them the simplicity. There's nothing to it. And they'd say, well, there's no money in it. Forget it. And everything he'd bring up, So it was Carr's point of view that the Tesla was discouraged, but did Carr sort of relate his being hounded by, the military or being, shadowed and so on, as being this, what happened to Carr as being the same thing as happened to Tesla? Yeah.
In other words, did he talk about that at all, Carr, before he died?
Well, I guess, I don't know. Carr didn't talk too much about the threats or anything that Tesla had, but I was under the impression, talking to Carr, that there were many, many things happening that were trying to keep Tesla under wraps, trying to keep him quiet. And Tesla had told him at one time, he says, I may never make it in this generation to get these ideas out. But this is all just free energy. Free is, you got four elements, the sun, the water, the earth, and the air. They're all free. They have been forever, and they always will be, and we're not using them. were inventing ways to put meters on them and sell them. They even were selling air at one time, and now they're selling water. And you know,
Who would have thought?
Yeah. So Tesla told him, all this that I'm sharing with you, and he thought the car was brilliant. He thought that, you know, he was grasping everything that Tesla was telling him, because Carr had been into nature for years himself. He said, if I don't make it, or when I don't make it, he said, I probably won't make it, you take it and pass it on. And if you don't make it, pass it on. But this is, it's going to get worse, because they've already challenged nature. Man, way back there, had challenged nature. And what goes around comes around, natural law. It will come back on them.
Basically, Carr did exactly what Tesla asked him to do.
Yes.
He took it forward.
Yeah.
In a sense, you are taking forward what Carr...
Oh, you bet.
What Carr... I mean, you seem to be the person, you know, that's like a descendant of Carr in that line. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I mean,
it's so amazing to me that you're so unknown.
Well, there's many reasons for that.
Because we would like to actually know why you're so unknown. You know what I mean?
Okay, I will tell you. They were all hit and miss. But Carr was always on, and I'd stay up all night. We'd be looking at the stars and talk all night, and never need any sleep. I mean, I'd go to work the next day and just feel pumped up all the time talking to this guy. I mean, he would just, wow. And I said, don't worry, we're going to get this thing going here. And he said, well, they're closing in. They know he's in California now. And we were on some of our experiments on some of the crafts, and we operated different principles. And some of them would create a corona around the outside of the little, we'd operate these little...
The dielectric principles,
right,
of the ionization process.
And so, even though it was daylight sometimes, you'd see these things, and the people in the valley were that was the era of flying saucers and stuff, so they thought, oh my God, this place has got flying saucers around here and stuff. Well, that and the fact that the powers that were trying to reduce Carr's activities was following him, trying to find him. So he said, well, we're just going to have to keep working on this. Carr had made arrangements, and I went with him to meet with a representative of General Motors car company. And that, I think it was either Riverside or, I think it was Riverside. The guy committed to meet with Carr, because Carr told him a few things that interested him. And so I went with him, and Rapolti was there, and I think Aho was there. And in a very precise way, Carr said, we can levitate these machines now. There's no, we get off the earth. We're killing a lot of animals. We're destroying the plant life. He says, within a year we'll have these things going, and we can start with the automobile. That's obsolete. We can get these things going, and then homes, and which is my interest. I've always wanted, why not? Like the Jetsons, for instance, floating homes, and then maybe cities, and then maybe, countries. Who knows the end of it? But this guy got real aggressive and said, you put them up there, Carr, and we'll shoot them down. That was his words. You put them up and we'll shoot them down.
Wow.
And I was flabbergasted, like, well, why? What? Mm-hmm. He says, well, you're advocating an energy field that there's no money involved. We can't,
We have no means of controlling it. It was his premise here,
right?
No doubt.
Because you're pulling energy out of the air, which is all around us, and using that to transport or teleport or whatever.
So he basically, you guys just walked out of there and said, okay, what did Carr say? Did he say, okay, I won't do it anymore? Or did he say, what did Carr say? I'm just curious after that.
I don't remember his exact words, but it was very
sort of a standoff?
It was very, very good, the way he said.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, he says, it's only a matter of time till it comes back and
you can't stop us. You can't stop it.
Yeah, it's here. Whether it's here today or tomorrow, it's here. It's rapidly approaching the point where it has to be, not want to be, but has to be. And he said, I'm sorry you don't, see our point, because we were willing to work with you. You could fund us and we could show you what we could do. And the guy wasn't interested, so we just left. And that was another acquaintance that I had with the system that we live in. I mean, I could never accept. We went back to Apple Valley and said, let's get the 45-foot craft going. Let's have people on board. Let's and we'll document it and we'll have the proof, and then we'll find ways. And we had the understanding group finding ways to let people know what we were going to do. We're going to have live demonstrations eventually. Make a long story short, we went through stages, and we finally got to the big craft. There was actually two of them, but there was the one craft that we were ready to try and experiment with.
And how big was that again?
45 feet diameter. And we were, by that time, we didn't have any fences or anything around us, and you could see the thing from the roads and stuff, and we knew that, only a matter of time till the looky-loos started getting there, but we didn't care. We knew we had to do something before, because now General Motors is going to go tell whoever what we're proposing, and it won't be long before they find out what we're doing. Well, he said, come on, we're going to go. He got us into the briefing room, and he told, there was three of us, and I don't remember who the other two guys were now. It wasn't Rapoli, it wasn't Colton, it wasn't Hall. But there was three of us, and he said, what you're going to do, you're going to get on board, we're going to go downrange. We had a 65-mile range in Apple Valley, and where we eventually wound up was about 10 miles, I think, downrange. He says, you're gonna get on board, and we're gonna go someplace, and then we're gonna come back, and that's all. And he said, but I want to tell you ahead of time, your brain will no longer
be the same.
You will lose it. You will because it won't understand and it won't comprehend what's happening. So use your mind, use your feelings, come from your heart, meditate, go into a focus point, and go to your higher thoughts and feelings, rather than worrying about what was going to happen. So he said, it's going to be a strange experience for you, but it will happen, and we will document it. And so we got on board, and what it was there on board, it was just a small, like a crystal ball in the center. It wasn't actually in the center, it was off center a little bit. And it had I think it was a laser, I don't know, there was a white light coming up from the bottom of it, shining up through it. And it just beautifully broke the color spectrum into, like, from infrared, red, orange, yellow, all the way around 360 degrees. And to anywhere you wanted to go, any degree you wanted to go in the color spectrum was there. I said, boy, that's beautiful. And we'd been briefed on it, but I didn't, until I saw it, I didn't realize, what was going on. He said, okay, just relax. We're going to go to an area that symbolizes. He used to use symbols a lot. I mean, he'd say, talking is useless. You have to use higher than talking is symbols, is to reach the mind.
Thinking in pictures.
In pictures, right. So talking is, in fact, off the subject for a minute, I used to, when I used to read a lot, one of my greatest people was Khalil Gibran, and he wrote the book The Prophet, and in there he said, one of his sayings was, half of what I say to you is meaningless, but it's necessary so that the other half may reach you. And I thought, whoa, now I get it, that you have to come from the soul or the heart, or it's no good. It's just going around in circles.
There's something about choosing the blue spectrum in order to, with your mind?
Aquamarine. Aquamarine. The car, we were in touch. I don't know if we had walkie-talkie, I don't know, but I remember we were in touch. And he said, okay, we're going to Aquamarine, that's over there, and hang on, boys, let's go. So we sat there, and I'm just doing this from memory, and I'm...
So you're all collectively focusing the same collective thought.
Right.
To feed this energy in a center of a focal point, which is this ball.
Right. And this ball then started just closing down and focusing on Aquamarine. The whole thing became Aquamarine. And I said, my God, this is, how did he do that, And he told us later that we were a part of it, doing it, because we were focused on it. And I go, this is great.
This biofeedback mechanism, this synergistic.
Yeah. So we got focused on it, and then I was waiting for the thing to move now, and nothing seemed to happen. Nothing, And then Carr said, okay, boys, get out of the craft and see what's going on. Well, didn't it work, or what happened? I said, come on, get out of the craft. We got out, and we were downrange 10 miles, where this Aquamarine area was. And
imagine within this whole process, you're talking about probably a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll get to the timing in a minute on it. But so he said, all right, pick up rocks, put them in your pocket, take some grass or whatever you can find, some tumbleweed, whatever you can find, and get acquainted with where you're at. Because when you get back, you're not gonna remember any of this. I mean, that was the gist of the whole thing. So we did. We got back on board, and then we were back, and we got out of the craft, went into debriefing, and said, well, what happened? We thought, it didn't work, did it? He said, you don't think it worked? Check your pockets. And so we checked our pockets, and here's these dang rocks, and I had grass stains, I had everything, I said, oh my God.
But did you have memory? You didn't have memory of
No
this?
memory.
Oh, me?
No memory.
Your memory was...
Right. No memory at all. I remembered later being there and picking up the rocks, but then it was just like
like it was a dream or something.
Yeah, like it was a dream, exactly. Like you advance your imagination to a point, and then you forget about it. And so I thought, this is the most incredible experience I ever had. And he said, no, it's simple. Your brain is there to operate your body. You're in a vessel here. It's an illusionary vessel that people don't realize, because we're creating it in microseconds. From 1 second to the other, these shutters are opening and shutting and creating all this reality you see around you. It doesn't really exist. It's all spirit. It's all energy. But we're creating this. And he was blowing us away, and he said, but your brain has a capacity limit. It goes to a certain point of its responsibility, and unless it's in touch with the mind, unless it consents to be in touch with the mind, which
the higher mind, really.
Well, yeah, that's the mind of all of us, because we're all one. Unless it gets in touch with that, it doesn't know what's going on.
Am I to presume that at that moment that you had that flight of that 10-mile distance, your brain was being stretched like a rubber band, but when you went back faster than the memories of the experience could come back, and your brain could realize it.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know, days later or months later, you could remember, like you said, picking up the rocks then.
Yeah, but I don't remember any movement whatsoever. I mean, I don't...
You don't remember the
like
craft moving, or you don't remember
your body
moving.
And the ball turned to Aquamarine, and they said, get out of the craft. We got out, and there was motion there. I don't remember too much of that, but I remember it being outside. And then I guess we got back in and back to the base, But to us, it was at least 15 minutes.
Normal time.
Normal time, yeah. I figured, we'd be going about 15 minutes.
So there's a time variation going on here, so...
And Carr explained it, he said, it's simple. People don't realize that man, in a sense, created time. Time doesn't exist in essence. It does when we create it. And we have a beginning and an end to something, we call that time. But it says, in a greater reality, there is no time.
That's like the eternal now.
Yeah. And that we pegged it at 15 minutes, and just a few seconds, he says, he just went outside and back in time. I mean, it's just what you call it. What you created is what it is. And since then, I've had experiences that, have told me that just don't talk about it to anybody, because, it doesn't, most people are not interested because they're tied up with the creature comforts and so forth. And a lot of people, when I start getting close to it, they get a little fearful because they don't understand, and they, of course, think I'm...
What happened after, you made that test flight, right?
Right.
And so you didn't make that many test flights after that, is that right? You guys got closed down somehow?
I did the one test flight, and then we did some things that were there at the plant, but we didn't go down range or anything, because it was just about within 2 weeks after that the FBI and whoever these other guys, CIA or whatever,
no such agency,
weirdos, they came in to the plant. They came over with all their bells and whistles and said that, you're shutting down right now. And we asked why, and they said, well, because of your threat to overthrow the monetary system of the United States of America. That was their ploy, that was their...
And the issues of national security and what have you.
And we're confiscating everything, and they went into the offices, and they went into the lab, and, they started just confiscating everything. And then they briefed us, or debriefed,
yes,
and told us, in essence, this is you guys are wrong. You're attempting to overthrow the monetary system.
And this is what we're going to do to you if you don't cooperate. Sign here, here, and here.
Well, did they have you sign something?
No, I didn't. I don't remember signing anything.
And what about Carr?
Yeah, they might have had him. He got really, his health started going fast after that happened. And I don't know.
So I don't know, so you were working on this night and day pretty much at that point.
Right.
So you guys disbanded based on these people coming in.
Yeah, and they said you're no longer allowed to...
On no uncertain terms.
No uncertain
terms. You will cease and desist.
We're watching you,
So what did you do then? What did you do? Did you just go home and did you try to work in secret at all at that point or anything like that?
I tried to do it on my own, which I found out you can't do it. You got to have other people.
So you and Carr, did you stay in touch after that?
Well, they told us not to. So I, through understanding, I was in touch with Carr, and I said we'll get together again. But he was really. He said, no, I don't think we're going to make it this time.
All right, now, I want you to listen to this. Is this real? Well, is that real? Is what you just heard real? I don't know. I don't have the technical ability to tell you about this, to do this.
All right. The pledge to the flag of our country, emblem of our Constitution. Remember the principles which they stand. Department 3, the Superior Court is now in session. The Honorable Thomas Ashford III, Judge presiding. Please be seated and ordered.
This is the trial of Alexander Shutterhand.
This man gave up his freedom in an attempt to offer any American citizen a solution for a better life. So, if you are fed up with anger against the electric companies and governmental agencies messing up your life, wealth, and health, this short video will blow your mind. 29th of January, 1966, Washington, D.C. Alexander Shutterhand received 20 years of imprisonment only for trying to show the world a better way of living. He paid the freight for messing with the wrong guys. He was found guilty of conveying classified information to an unauthorized party and theft of government property. And as you'll discover, this was the reward American officials offered him in one of the biggest cover-ups known to man. But you may ask who Alexander Shutterhand was and why his story is so important to any American patriot fighting the system these days. Well, here's the story. Alexander Shutterhand grew up to follow his childhood dream and become a well-known university teacher at Columbia University, New York. He had a lot of research articles in the science field, all of them focusing on the possibility of producing alternative types of energy. His work became pretty famous those days. He even got the chance to work for the U.S. renowned scientists on a couple of projects. Word got out he worked even for the government in some top-secret project. But in spite of his famous work, Alexander Shutterhand remained the same humble miracle kid he had always been, working all day long, inventing this and that, living in his universe filled with all kinds of weird contraptions, dreaming that one day all his work will be used for a greater cause. This was his deepest wish. You'll see that by his work, he was only trying to help the average American citizen to obtain a more rewarding life. In 1947, a period of great economical and political instability, young Shutterhand, only 27, was developing what no one imagined will become one of the greatest inventions of the modern world. As the beginnings of the Cold War were heating up in that same period, fate would bring Shutterhand in the service of the U.S. Army because the real war was in fact a display of power between American and Soviet technological breakthroughs. The Army did not hesitate to secretly contact him and use his knowledge at one more job in favor of his home country. They offered him a complete lab equipped with the latest technology available at the time. By using this technology, he was able to develop a device that would prove crucial for the war and turn the balance in the favor of the U.S. The deadline was as short as a New York minute. This was the moment his genius practically made the difference and gave the U.S. Army the edge. In just 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, he managed to create a complex enough device to generate sufficient energy to power a small airplane. Not an eye-catchy one, the device coped to sustain the aircraft without being detected by the enemies, as it did not use any type of fuel. This was the key element. It was sufficient for the Army to install it on some drones to spy on the Soviet camps. In October 1962, those drones took several pictures clearly showing sites for nuclear missile activities in Cuba. Immediately, the conflict intensified and the nuclear war became imminent. Thanks to this unique device, millions of people were saved as the Soviet Union was planning to attack the USA. After severe negotiations, the Soviet Union accepted to cease the production of nuclear weapons. But who knows what would have happened if this mechanism had not been invented and the Army had not discovered nuclear warheads. Unfortunately for poor Alexander, the Army did not recognize his merits, and some general took all the credit for his invention. Moreover, they took his blueprints and classified them. Frustrated and disheartened, he returned to work as a researcher and as a teacher, chasing his dream to make the world a better place, hoping that someday his accomplishments will be recognized and they would become useful for every citizen, giving every American a better life. A few years later, a massive event shook America as hard as an earthquake, and somehow, as a result of a strange chain of events, it caught Alexander Shutterhand right in the middle of it.
Presents a special report. The story of tonight's massive power failure in the East. Here is NBC News Washington correspondent Robert Abernethy.
Good evening. The northeastern United States tonight suffered its worst electric power failure in history. In the next few minutes, we hope to tell you in detail what happened and to pass on what little is known about why it happened.
This is the news that could be heard all over America on the night of 9th November 1965. It was an awful night for over 30 million people. Some were uncertain whether they would come out of it alive or not. I bet you've heard about the Northeast blackout of 1965. 9 states were affected and countless people were left in the dark. The problem was so serious that no one managed to figure out the cause, nor the solution. People were getting pretty irritated about the frequent and long-lasting blackouts, and spirits were getting hot. Small riots burst because of the darkness. People were seriously injured and a couple of lives were lost in violent conflicts. Even though it happened before, it had never been for such a long period of time or on such a scale. People were stuck in the subways. Stores were being robbed. Poor souls were stuck in elevators all over the cities. Police barely could face the scene. Hospitals were on the edge of a crisis. Thousands of patients were in a life-and-death situation and were depending on the comeback of the power. Panic was the word of the moment, and everybody felt it. When will the power come back? Will it come back? How will the problem be solved? These questions were on everybody's lips. At Niagara Hydroelectric Power Station, the heart of the electricity grid of the northeastern America, the biggest concern was the millions of dollars they had already lost and could lose in the near future. They did not give a damn over the poor people that struggled between life and death. All heads turned to the directors who were responsible for the resurrection of the power plant. Many experienced electricians and scientists and researchers were called in to solve the problem, but their efforts were ineffective. It was all in vain. The power station simply went flat, and no one can figure it out. Not even the renowned scientist who had designed it could figure it all out. Out of options, and at the end of their rope, one of the engineers working at Niagara Hydroelectric Power Station came up with a sappy solution. He remembered reading in a science magazine about the work of this young inventor, Alexander Shutterhand. The board of directors mocked him. How can a clueless guy toying around with his trifles help America in this overwhelming problem? But as ridiculous as it seemed, and as embarrassed as they were, this was their only solution. As a last resort, one of the directors called Shutterhand. Desperation could be heard in his untruthful voice. Alexander, we need a source of energy. Riots are bouncing across the cities, and we can't afford a civil war. Please help me. At about 10 p.m., Alexander Shutterhand arrived at Niagara Hydroelectric Power Station, carrying only a very mysterious small box, but looking very confident. That box contained what looked like a small generator. A deep mumbling spread throughout the facility as the people watched Alexander Shutterhand setting up his device, a device that would make miracles and save millions of people on that November night. Some were laughing, some were praying, some even offered to lend a hand. But they all hoped deep inside their hearts that this unpromising-looking device would do something. The main problem was the transformer that started the whole power plant. It needed to be restarted, and no device that could supply such energy was found. After setting up the device and connecting it to the transmitter, in mere moments the unfortunate neighborhoods of Ontario began to light up one by one. The generator that everyone had laughed at managed to start the whole station. Everyone was amazed, and one of the questions everybody began to ask was, is there such a device that does not require fuel and that can maintain itself? After that breathtaking night, the next day Alexander and his device were highly publicized. But coming out with such an amazing device would undoubtedly attract the wrong kind of attention. The attention of those who live off the backs of citizens who pay the electric bills that have become more and more costly. Besides the important leak of information that the Army had suffered, the big electric companies were aware that if the device would have been patented, it would mean the end of their business. They had to do something. 2 days later, on November 11th, the same newspapers that had publicized the superhuman actions of Alexander were telling a totally different story. They changed their tale and said that the blackout happened as a result of an error and that it was solved by the energetic company engineers. How was that possible? On one day they praised Alexander, and the next day he didn't even exist. As energy tycoons also own big media, they can discredit all persons who can harm them. The so-called device, as they said, was presented as a hoax, and the true story was suppressed and was never spoken about. The Army supported these statements and, in collaboration with the electric companies, imprisoned Alexander on the grounds of using secret military information. Alex Shutterhand died in prison Official documents showed severe head trauma to be the cause of his death. It was clear that there was only one way out of the prison, and that was in a box, and the possibility of finding out the real benefits of his inventions and really use them for generating free energy seemed lost. Years passed, and the secret was thought to have died along with its inventor. Another break in history took place, and nobody had the chance to catch on. This was the loss of another genius, trying only to help the people live a better life. But faith wasn't going to cut us loose yet. 40 years later, I personally stumbled over a secret copy of the blueprints of the device my grandfather was keeping as a backup. My name is George Shutterhand, and I still can't believe that this was the story of his life, and not a single day passes by without me thinking about the possibilities that could have emerged if those greedy energy corporatists would have not picked on him for his entire life. I wish he would have simply been left at peace to follow his lifelong dream. I consider it my personal duty to revenge his honor and carry out his legacy by revealing this amazing device to the public and finally giving those fat cats the foot. I didn't waste a second and got to work. The plans were stuffed with precious information that showed me how to crack the code and build my own powerful independent power system for a fraction of what those big companies were charging me every month. Not only did my grandfather know everything there is to know about generating power, he also made these plans with a purpose. These backup plans were different. These were made so that any citizen could read them. That was the moment it came to me. He wanted to teach people all over the world how to build their own independent power system. Well, you'd better believe I wasn't going to diddle around. I couldn't believe that someone like me, who had barely picked up a set of tools since high school shop class, was able to build his own power system from start to finish. But the best news of all, from the very first month I had my system up and running, I started to see my electric bill go down for the first time ever, and it just kept getting better. Once I got my generator turned on, the numbers just kept going down. Well, I don't have to tell you, it made me feel great to be able to tell the oil company, nope, we don't need our oil tank refilled this month, maybe next month, or not. I really got a charge out of using my grandfather's plans to outsmart the power company who thought they had me over a barrel. Soon, my friends and neighbors started asking me to show them how I did it. They wanted to know the secret to slashing their power bill while breaking free of the government's energy chokehold. And that's when I realized this wasn't about me or the folks in my town. I knew there were thousands of Americans out there who were just as angry as I was about rising electricity costs. I knew there were other patriots like me who could see the writing on the wall about where this country is going, who wanted to step up and take charge of their own lives. These are the folks who are confident and fearless in the face of crisis, ready to take responsibility for their own homes and families. This information was too important to keep to myself. I spent months writing detailed manuals, not to mention testing everything to make sure anyone could use it. And after a lot of hard work, the Shutterhand Generator Guide was born. The Shutterhand Generator Guide is a simple, easy-to-follow, step-by-step guide to building a generator that does not require any maintenance and does not use any fuel. It's a start-and-forget mechanism that is not only environmentally friendly, but will get you overnight profits. The Shutterhand generator is the invention which brought light back into people's homes, on streets, and hospitals. It's the device that made the difference in that unlucky day of 9th of November, 1965. This device is like none other in the world. The Shutterhand generator is foolproof and can be built by the average Joe as myself and many more. Yes, it really works. The engine is basically a gravitational-driven machine that gets its torque both from leverage and speed. The result is a large output of energy with no power to produce it, with only a 3% loss. So that being the case, this system will run by itself. But don't take my word for it. Here's live footage of the device.
What we're seeing is a circular device, obviously generating electricity, powering light bulbs, powering other things. Got the charge up here and is working.
This device represents a forward-thinking solution for all your bill problems. Regardless of your profession or qualifications, you will surely be amazed at how your monthly electric bill becomes an extra paycheck. Yes, you should know that the American law guarantees you a certain sum of money if you produce your own electric power and put it back into the electrical grid. Here's what the Shutterhand generator will do for you. It will produce 100% free energy. No need to start it by any other electrical device, nor do you need to plug it in to get it running. Moreover, when started, it will continuously generate all power needed, and no further investments are required. It's cost efficient. It will surely offer you what you pay for and even more. You will surely remember this moment as an important crossroad of your life, because a small amount invested at the right time. Does not require maintenance. Once you set it, you'll forget about it and remember only when your electric bill arrives. There is no need for spare parts, nor will you need to replace anything after a certain while. It does not produce any noises. It's a silent device, so you won't hear it rumbling in the house. It's environmentally friendly. Not only will it save you tremendous amounts of money day in and day out, but you'll be one of the good guys helping the environment, because the Shutterhand generator does not consume any type of fuel. Therefore, there are no emissions.
All right, let me tell you, folks, this is the direction everything is going in. And let's take a look at this. This is Harley Davidson coming out with an electric bike. That's right. Harley Davidson is coming out with an electric bike. And Tesla Motor Company has come out with an electric car. Now, keep in mind, let's think about this. This Shutterhand generator is probably the same type of device that was put into Lindbergh's plane to allow him to fly across the Atlantic. You can put wheels, modified wheels on this Harley, on this electric Harley, that will charge the battery while it's rolling. They've got the wheels for the cars. This is the way of the future. And the solar units are becoming more and more affordable. Put them on your house and put this electric generator in your garage, and you become free. You become self-sufficient. Now, they threaten people. The UFOs, this is the technology behind the UFOs, and you've just heard on this show that they threaten you to keep you from doing this. Oh my God, folks. This is the wave of the future. I would have this in Liberty Villages. Look out for a black Chevrolet Camaro in Cuero, Texas. The license number is license number is BX8B009. It's a 2010 black Chevrolet Camaro. They've kidnapped a child. Folks, this kind of information, now you can get this. You'll go to my website. You go to Free American 69. I will have it up on Free American shortly during the show. You can get the Shutterhand generator. He'll ask you $49 for it. Say no, try to leave the page, and then he'll come back with a $27 offer. I would have this right now. If I had the $27, I've asked you for donations. I've asked you for your support. This is why. I want to be able to research this. I want to be able to tell you this. Okay, thank you for that. And this is what they have tried to do to me. They have tried to break me so I can't fix a motorcycle, I can't get the transportation, I can't do this. I've got somebody showed up that couldn't afford it, that didn't have it, couldn't make a donation, but they loaned me $1,000 to get the bike running. So I have some transportation now. If I had $27, I would be building this generator right now. I want you to build it. I want you to get it, and you tell me if it's real. I've written to the people, the George Shutterhand or the grandson, asked him to appear on my show to show me that it works, demonstrate it to me, and I'll promote it, and I'll help sell it. Now you can buy a solar unit for $500, but if you can build this for a couple $100 and take it with you and power it and bring it over to my trailer and show it, plug it in and show me that it works. I'm not technically skilled. I can use the computer, I can use the radio, I can do that. We need to work together. And I've told you, if you can generate your own power from everything God gave us, whether it's magnetic, solar, or wind, and you can grow your own food non-genetically modified. If you're a big business and you want to do it on the roof of your supermarkets and make a deal with a chain to build big greenhouses, more power to you. This is the way it works. These power companies, the Morgans, the DuPonts, they tried to stop the hemp because they don't want hemp competing with logging. They don't want, they prefer to make paper out of trees rather than something that's renewable, because they don't want you being self-sufficient. They don't want the farmers here. That's why they're trying to make it illegal to even grow a garden in your backyard. This is tyranny. This is mind control. They're not telling you about this on Alex Jones. I put up today, I put up everything. I personally want one of these electric Harleys, but I don't have $10,000 to put into it right now. But eventually we will have, if we can shake this stranglehold they have on us. If we've got the money, maybe you can't afford to send me a $100 donation today. Why? I am giving you more information than you can possibly get on ABC or NBC or CBS. I don't have anybody behind me. I'm not selling advertising. I won't sell advertising. You can't pay me for advertising unless I've tried a product. Now, I don't make a dime. If you buy this generator, if you buy the plans for this generator and you build it, I don't make a dime off of it. I'm giving it to you. I am putting this out. I want my own Harley hauler. I'd like for somebody to really get it together and build the Harley hauler that I wrote about in one of my screenplays. A little UFO so we could go for a ride today along the Alps. Let's take a tour of the Alps and be back in the United States in time for dinner without going through customs, without going through TSA, without being searched, without being felt up. That is the future that we have for us. Now, I wrote about this 45 years ago as science fiction. And what I'm telling you now is that they built it. Lindbergh had a generator built. Maybe it was a Shutterhand generator. I don't know. Don't remember the particular name of it. But the technology is there. Now, if we all work together, if we consolidate, if we become our own militias, if we protect our own neighborhoods, if we grow our own food and we generate our own energy, we've got a real bright future ahead of us. This is what I want. This is what I'm trying to do. This is real, folks. And this is what the Free American is about. It's about giving you the power to run your own life with free of government control, free of intimidation, free of taxation, without representation. It's what our country was designed to be, and we had that freedom for 100 years. Today we got the technology, and they're trying to control that, and they're trying to keep you from having this power that's been available for 10,000 years. I wrote about it 45 years ago, and I went all the way back 10,000 years to talk about Atlantis, about the designs and the messages that were left for us that you can only see from the air. These devices that this gentleman built, this is, again, real. And, well, I need your help. I've got the answers. We've got the answers. $27, you can build a Shutterhand generator. Build 2 of them. Give me one. And I'll promote it all over the country. I'll strap it to the back of the Harley and
Just what's really going on in the news.
God bless you.
But mainstream media won't tell you. Are you frustrated with your elected politicians? Get the news behind the news at truthradio.com. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs on demand. Listen when you want to. truthradio.com. The truth is out there. All you have to do is open your mind and listen.